Since the disputed election in November 2010, political violence in Côte d'Ivoire has caused more than 300,000 people to flee their homes, mainly to neighbouring Liberia, the majority of whom are women and children. In Côte d'Ivoire itself, the ongoing violence is putting a strain on the country's infrastructure. 1.5 million people do not have access to proper water and sanitation facilities, leaving them vulnerable to epidemics such as cholera, while the closure of many schools is denying 800,000 children their right to an education. UNICEF has been working in the region delivering vital health, education and water and sanitation programmes. I caught up with Vigneault-Dubois, UNICEF Communication Officer in Côte d'Ivoire, to ask him about the situation facing children in the country and what UNICEF is doing to get children back into school.
So I think what everyone thought would be a political debate that would last for a couple of weeks after the elections in November of 2010 is now dragging on for the fourth month and is having far-reaching humanitarian consequences on the population, on the whole population. And obviously women and children are particularly vulnerable in these circumstances. I think what we're starting to see now is epidemics, diseases breaking out across the country, which is probably a symptom of the health system not functioning properly. Health workers are not at their post anymore because of fear of insecurity. Health centers are running short of essential drugs, critically short of essential drugs everywhere in the country. And the state is not able to resupply the drugs anymore. So this is one aspect that the population now has to face in terms of public health. The education system is seriously disrupted with the crisis. 800,000 children who are normally going to school, who were registered in September, cannot go to school because the schools are closed in part of the country. So these children were already registered, and we have to take into consideration that in normal time, only 60% of the population of children is going to school. So on top of that, we add 800,000 children who cannot go to school. I mean, obviously now the year is void, but it's not obvious that they will be able to start again next year because now they're exposed to violence, they're exposed to abuses like forced labor, recruitment, and if they cannot return to school, it's going to be a lost and the highest dropout for children.
What is UNICEF doing to ensure these 800,000 children get access to an education?
So obviously the schools are closed in part of the country, as I mentioned. We're doing high-level advocacy to reopen the schools as quickly as possible. I think children should not be taken hostage of political debate. They don't vote, they don't take side by definition in the political debate. So I think it's important to reopen the schools as soon as possible. We've also been able to provide assistance for displaced children and set up temporary schools in the camps for displaced people to provide education for those children who are not at home right now. In parts of the country where schools are more or less functioning, we've provided assistance such as school bags with supplies, books, pencils to the children, because the situation in Côte d'Ivoire now has taken a different turn since January. Banks are closed for most of the country. So that has led to a sort of general economic slowdown and massive layoffs of people. And those who are still working probably cannot cash their paycheck because the banks are closed. So people are running out of money. So whenever there's a need to pay for, school supplies, and although school is free, but parents always have to pay for uniforms or school supplies or those little associated costs, it's becoming very critical, and the parents don't have the money anymore to pay for that. So we don't want to have a parent that is faced with the challenge or the dilemma to either feed their kids or to send them to school. So at least we hope that by providing this kind of assistance, we can reduce to a maximum the sort of associated costs that parents have to pay to send their kids to school.
Is there a particular child that you've met that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, we met a little boy probably a couple of weeks ago in Bouaké, which is the second largest city in Côte d'Ivoire, in the center of the country. So Arthur, his name, is 12 years old, is going to school, first year of secondary school. Obviously, he hasn't started school at all since the beginning of the year, because during the elections, parents feel a bit insecure and didn't want to send their kids to school. And then the elections came, and then after that, the schools remained closed, as we know. So he hasn't started school. Now he's sort of forced to sell cosmetics and different products on the street. He's doing it also to help his family, to bring a little bit of money to feed the family, help his mother and brothers and sisters. But obviously that's not where he wants to be. He wants to be in school. That's where he's doing well. The teacher says he's a good student. He wants to be an engineer. But now that he's missed 1 year, it's not obvious that he can start again next year, because now the family rely more on his income, even though it's very small. It's probably a few pennies a day that he's making for profit. Now the family relies on that, and he's sort of a breadwinner for the family now with what he's doing. So it's going to be very difficult for him now to stop bringing in income for the family, returning to school whenever schools reopen, and having obviously the parents to pay the small costs associated with that. So it's a very difficult situation. And the story of Arthur is the story of the 8,000 children who are not going to school right now.
What does the future hold for the children of Côte d'Ivoire?
We hope that the political stalemate can be resolved quickly and that the population can return to normal very quickly. I think the more it drags on, the deeper and long-lasting the consequences will be on the population. I think the country was already severely affected by the war from 2002 to 2006. The country was slowly starting to get on the recovery road. We were starting to see progress on indicators such as child mortality and the basic indicators that we follow closely. So we were starting to see very slow progress on that. Now I'm afraid that the situation has gone backward for the people, and it's now a setback for them. So I think we need to be there to provide the right assistance at the right time and to make sure that we accompany the people even though they're going through a difficult time. UNICEF was there before, we've been there through the crisis, and we will continue to be there after to make sure that they can recover and get back to a normal life as soon as possible. I mean, Côte d'Ivoire was a model in West Africa until the 80s, so there's no reason why they couldn't get back to where they were before if there's will and the right support.
To find out more about the crisis and donate to UNICEF's Children's Emergency Fund, please visit unicef.org.uk/Ivory Coast.